I really didn't notice how old the Portal games are. The franchise was already 7 years old before I had even heard about it, much less played any of the games. They've aged remarkably well, especially against other games that came out around the same time, and while mostly out of the public consciousness today, it still left a massive impact and maintains a huge fan base. So how did this quirky little game get so big and remain so prolific? Well, to start, it's good. Like, really, really good. The first Portal is small, being only developed by 10 people back when Valve weren't the $1 million titans that they are today. It's considered to be the spiritual successor to an indie game called Narbacular Drop, which uses the same basic principles of Portal, but in a much smaller and more rudimentary way because it was made by college students in like a week. Now, Narbacular Drop's portals are extremely innovative, but the game itself is basically nothing. What, you get like 10 minutes of playtime with no story to speak of? If only we could have amazing Portal mechanics with an interesting story, all in a sharp and polished package. Here's Portal. You're waking up in this funny little room. Why is everything so white? Who's this computer lady and what is wrong with her? Never mind that, asshole. She's calling you fat and giving you this sick portal gun. Go have fun, idiot. Portal smoothed out this idea so well. Oh my god. If you haven't noticed, the main selling point of Portal is the portals. The first Portal game was really the first time this Portal idea, this is getting really confusing, in general, had been introduced to the public. It was a huge step forward in puzzle and game design, and is mostly the reason Portal is held up there with the rest of Valve's greats. The basic idea of portals is that they seamlessly connect the two places you put them in. No transitions and not teleporting in the traditional sense. Valve took this one step further with momentum. Momentum through a portal is carried through to the other side, meaning you can launch yourself through a test chamber at high speeds and maybe mash your face against some cubes along the way. You can get stuck in two upward-facing portals, and you can send objects flying through test chambers at high speeds and once again hit yourself in the face. This one relatively simple addition is already making the gameplay more complicated and fun. Now, a portal is only as good as the environment it's used in, and Valve knows that, so appropriately, the level design is absolutely fantastic. They're really good at showing you what you need to do by using reoccurring puzzle elements. You know that cubes usually go in buttons, you know what these energy pellets are, what lasers do, and that turrets are heartless murderers but still somehow the most adorable thing in the game, right next to the companion cube. All of it is there for a specific purpose that you can recognize and use, which makes total sense because the setting of the game is a testing course at a laboratory, which leads me to Portal's world building. Portal tells its story through its world building. I mean, how else are they supposed to do it? You're literally the only human in the game. And what it really excels at is environmental storytelling. You never leave Aperture Laboratories in this game, so most of the context has to be told through what it actually looks like. The first chamber you wake up in is almost entirely white, with a small glass room in the center. The room has no door, and all it has in it is a bed, a toilet, and a little radio. This setup is very reminiscent of a prison cell, only the glass walls and the camera outside make it seem very uncomfortable and invasive of your privacy. This room also has no exit, and the only door just leads to the rest of the testing facility. Immediately, the setting feels cramped and unfamiliar. This is actually how most of the test chambers look, purely pragmatic. Everything you need is there, and nothing else. Not only does it help in the feeling that you're participating in something owned by a faceless, uncaring corporation, but it also helps the structure of the puzzles. Early playtesters actually ended up getting confused about what they were supposed to do because of the aesthetic elements. So Valve removed all of the aesthetic and made a new, non-aesthetic aesthetic. Portal also violates this rule of their design to set up mysteries for the story. If everything is supposed to look clean and scientific, then why does everything have a slight stain or a hint of grime on it? Did I volunteer for this? And if so, why isn't my name mentioned where it's obviously supposed to be?
While safety is one of many Enrichment Center goals, the Aperture Science High Energy pellet seen to the left of the chamber can and has caused permanent, unbelievable. You,
Subject name here.
must be the pride of.
Subject hometown here.
Why do I keep seeing these office/observation deck things, but no one is ever in them? There's water in this test chamber, but it's really gross and polluted beyond recognition. This test is supposed to be relatively safe, right? So why did I get sent to what I'm told is a shooting range for military androids? And why does it still have a test chamber number even though it's apparently not supposed to be there? Hey, there's a handprint here and it leads behind this Oh. Oh. This is a rat den, a hiding place in safe haven for a character called Doug Ratman, who I'm not too sure is doing alright, to be honest. These rooms are covered in scrawlings about how long he's been in there, and that she's always watching you. Gladys, the computer that's been running the test center and directing you on what to do. She's been there from the beginning. In the first chamber I mentioned before, she welcomes you before glitching out halfway through her sentence and switching to Spanish, and immediately you get the feeling that something isn't right. After your initial introduction, though, she seems like a normal, if not uncanny, presence in your game. She usually commentates over things you do, mostly when starting or finishing a test chamber, giving you cold encouragement and praise.
Did you know you can donate one or all of your vital organs to the Aperture Science Self-Esteem Fund for Girls? It's true.
There's something really compelling about the way Gladys speaks. She's obviously a computer, but her voice has slight inflections and intonations. She has specific happy or congratulatory voices, though they sound far more fake and unnatural than her malice or passive aggression. Her vocabulary is strange, and it sounds exactly how you would assume an AI developed specifically for running a company would sound. Almost like she's limited to only saying the proper names for anything related to Aperture Laboratories. Like how Adobe doesn't like people using Photoshop as an adjective, and would much prefer you say, modified with Adobe TM Photoshop TM software. Similarly to the environment, Gladys gets more and more aggressive as the game goes on, saying more strange and suspicious things to you, all culminating in the last test chamber where she tries to incinerate you alive.
Congratulations. The test is now over. All Aperture technologies remain safely operational up to 4,000 degrees Kelvin. Rest assured that there is absolutely no chance of a dangerous equipment malfunction prior to your victory incandescence. Thank you for participating in this Aperture Science computer-aided enrichment activity. Goodbye.
Again, look at her dialogue here. I don't think she ever explicitly lies to you. Yeah, she bends the truth and misleads you like a lot. But she never actually tells a full lie, and every time she tries to, she shorts out and gets all staticky. After you escape, it even sounds like she's about to get angry and start threatening you or something, but then she stops herself and calms down.
What are you doing? Stop it. We are pleased that you made it through the final challenge where we pretended we were going to murder you.
Did you hear that? She said we are pleased, not I am pleased. She's not referring to herself. She's talking about the company or some unseen other because she can't actually lie to you. At this point, you're outside the test chambers, going through the offices and maintenance areas that you've been seeing glimpses of throughout the game. Some more quick world-building stuff here. You get to see computers and disheveled office areas, which makes this section of the game look abandoned quickly. I was going to say this half of the game is kind of bland in comparison with the rest, until I remembered that not only are the test chambers pretty unexceptional to look at, it's also pretty much the whole point of this section. I will say that this background portion's puzzles are less interesting than the test chamber ones, but definitely not by much, and it's really hard not to have fun when you still have the portal gun. Other than that, though, I really don't have much to say on these parts, other than as build-up to the final confrontation with Gladys. After moving to the underbelly of Aperture, you walk through this really ominous hallway into a really ominous room, and there she is. The one who's been causing you so much trouble, and now you can finally beat the shit out of her. Now is probably a good time to mention that Gladys' design is really good. A robot hanging out of the ceiling is a really interesting idea, and it actually looks pretty creepy. She looks like a growth or something here, swaying in a strangely organic way. I even remember hearing somewhere that she resembles an actual bound body upside down. The rest of her structure extends into the ceiling, completely dwarfing you, and it really gives you the sense of the sheer operating power that's running her. While she's talking about how pointless your whole journey here was, this funny little eye thing drops out of her. Gladys insists that she doesn't know what it is, and you should probably just incinerate it. And once you do...
Where are you taking? You're kidding me. Did you just set that Aperture Science thing, we don't know what it does, into an Aperture Science Emergency Intelligence Incinerator? That has got to be the dumbest thing that... Whoa. Good news. I figured out what that thing you just incinerated did. It was a morality core they installed after I flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin to make me stop flooding the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin.
The fight begins. Yeah, nice job deep frying her morality core, you idiot. So yeah, the whole time she was trying to murder you, she had a moral obligation to hold back, which is probably why she was using the test instead of neurotoxin again. Which, yeah, the reason Aperture is so empty is because she flooded the entire facility with Minecraft poison potion. Oh, and she is actually using the neurotoxin again now. Probably because you took her morality core and served it well done.
Finally, some good fucking food.
At this point, she's using a rocket turret, which you can turn back against her to knock off more cores. It's pretty repetitive, but at least retrieving the cores makes you use some of the strategies from the test chambers. The main draw of this fight is Gladys' dialogue. She actually changes how she talks to you based on what cores you've incinerated. After the curiosity core, she stops caring about you and your actions and only cares about killing you. And after the intelligence core, she just flings childish insults at you despite being a literal supercomputer.
Neurotoxin. So deadly. Joking.
Kidding.
The deadly was a massive sarcasm quote. I could take a bath in this stuff, put it on cereal, rub it right into my eyes. Honestly, it's not deadly at all.
To me.
It's really interesting and saves an otherwise pretty basic boss fight. After you incinerate the last core, the anger core, she dies, because what is a man without their gamer rage? The whole chamber starts to break down and you're sucked into the great white beyond.
Don't believe me? Here, I'll put you on.
That's you. That's how dumb you sound. You've been wrong about every single thing you've ever done, including this thing. You're not smart. You're not a scientist. You're not a doctor. You're not even a full-time employee. But you don't like so wrong. Are you interesting? I think it's changed the last time you left.
Thank you for assuming the party escort submission position.
You only manage to get a fleeting glimpse of the outside world before you're pulled back in, because did you honestly think you could escape hell that easily? The last shot of the game being deep inside Aperture Laboratories, implying that Gladys might not be as dead as she looked. As well as a cake, because I'm telling you she's not allowed to lie. Yeah, forget about this. I'm sure that the morality core's effects are also forgetting about the morality core. Just please believe my game theory. The end credits of the game are put over a song performed by Ellen McLean, the voice actor of GLaDOS, basically cementing that there will be a sequel to this game while also being an absolute banger. Holy shit.
Hard to overstate my satisfaction.
Overall, the first Portal game is a masterpiece by itself, perfectly using a compelling story, concept, and world to its advantage. It would explode in popularity, and the stage seems set for a sequel to properly explore what was set up in the first game.
It's been a long time. How have you been?
Portal 2 would be released 4 years later in 2011, and it had gamers hyped. I mean, just look at this trailer. This was Portal bigger and better than anyone had ever seen before. Portal 2 promised a new story with a fresh setting, as well as generally higher production value due to having a much bigger team. Not to mention actual characters in co-op mode so I don't go insane from isolation. Swag.
I think we can put our differences behind us. For science. You monster.
The only real question was whether it would be able to live up to the massively high bar set by Portal 1. Hell yeah, it would. Who do you think we are? We're not banging rocks together over here. We know how to make a quantum space hole. Portal 2 does everything a sequel should do. It takes everything in the first game and builds upon it, expanding our idea of what this series is. The first thing that should be immediately obvious is the setting. Portal 2 starts out in this kitsch hotel-looking place. Right away, we don't know what to expect from this. Remember, we're used to this, so this is pretty jarringly comfortable, at least for a Portal game. And it starts getting even weirder when our first actual character enters the scene, who is apparently very worried about something and tells you not to panic and that everything's gonna be okay. He goes up into the roof and everything gets all shaky and creaky, And this leads to one of my favorite openings in any game ever.
All reactor core safeguards are now non-functional. Please prepare for reactor core meltdown.
Okay, look, I wasn't going to mention this to you, but I'm in pretty hot water here. How you doing down there? You still holding on? The reserve power ran out, so of course the whole relaxation centre stops waking up the bloody test subjects. Hold on, this is a bit tricky. And of course, nobody tells me anything. No, why should you tell me anything? Why should I be kept informed? You know, about the life functions of the 10,000 bloody test subjects I'm supposed to be in charge of. And whose fault do you think it's going to be when the management comes down here and finds 10,000 flipping vegetables? Alright, so no, I hear that one. Okay, listen, we should get our story straight, alright? If anyone asks, and no one's going to ask, don't worry, but if anyone asks, tell them as far as you know, the last time you checked, everyone looked pretty much alive, alright? Not dead.
Look at how big it is. This is our first new look at Aperture Laboratories, and it sets the mood perfectly. Each one of these containers is a room just like yours, and all of the other test subjects inside have died, leaving only you. Taking in this massive area, you can already see some signs of rust and decay. Some of these containers are looking very old, and this is especially obvious when you finally ram directly into the testing track.
I think this is a docking station. Get ready. Good news, that is not a docking station. So there's one mystery solved. I'm going to attempt a manual override on this wall. Could get a bit technical. Hold on. Almost there. Remember, you're looking for a gun that makes holes. Not bullet holes, but don't worry, you'll figure it out. Seriously, do hold on this time.
Everything is completely overgrown. How long have we been asleep then?
9.
Alright, apparently long enough to leave a sweaty crater in the bed. If you notice, this is the same chamber as the first game, and it continues in the same way. This is a genius way of giving the player a soft tutorial for this new game. They've already seen these before, so they should at least know what they're doing so that we can get straight to the new stuff. The best thing is that there aren't just carbon copies of an old game. They've been lovingly remodeled, even edited and improved in some areas, so that older players can have something new. After finishing this first set of tests, you get your portal gun and reunite with the little blue man from before, whose name is Wheatley, by the way. You slip through a hidden panel on the wall and try to find a way out. As you progress, you eventually find yourself in Gladys' chamber, and you can see her dead body fully for the first time. This is another masterfully done scene. Seeing Gladys here, someone who's tried to murder you so many times before, and who you know would be the most dangerous entity in the whole lab if she were awake, is really unsettling. The way Wheatley talks about her like a raving psychopath who was only stopped eventually by some human against all odds, without knowing that it was you, also helps this feeling greatly. It definitely makes the relatively simple boss fight with her from before seem really dramatic. You move on to the breakers of the facility, where Wheatley tells you there's escape pods you can power on. And when you can't find it, Wheatley decides to move the platform you're standing on up, flipping almost every breaker to on, delivering you right back up to Gladys' chamber. She begins to move and pull together as Wheatley frantically tries to turn everything off, but it's too late.
Power up complete.
Okay, listen. Alright, new plan. Act natural. We've done nothing wrong. Hello!
Oh, it's you.
You know her?
It's been a long time. How have you been? I've been really busy being dead. You know, after you murdered me.
You did what? Ah! Oh no! No! Oh no! Ah!
Okay, look, we both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us. For science, you monster. I will say, though, that since you went to all the trouble of waking me up, you must really, really love to test. I love it too. There's just one small thing we need to take care of first.
And that's where the game ends, the credit song being still alive, except all the lyrics are replaced with GLaDOS laughing at you. No, actually you get dropped into the incinerator room because she doesn't actually want to kill you, just test with you until you die because she holds a serious grudge. Something really cool that gets shown off in this part of the game is that Aperture and Gladys are basically the same thing. All these years Gladys has been dead and the facility has been dead too, getting overgrown and gross, but once you wake Gladys up, the whole lab wakes up with her, moving and shifting around and cleaning itself up. Aperture Laboratory seems like a living, breathing thing now. Part of this because of a simple change in the level design, that being the panels. The panels are like floors and walls attached to robotic arms that Gladys can move however she wants, making any room or situation she wants, while also giving the feeling that at any moment they could snap shut. And the only reason they don't is that Gladys wants to preserve you for now. The panels also make Aperture feel much more open and futuristic. The missing panels give a glimpse into the massive void that's outside of any testing chamber. The first game had its own version of these, but they were large pistons that never really extended or retracted when you were in the area. This kind of ties into something I've mentioned a few times already, which is the scale of Portal 2. While the first game felt claustrophobic, this game feels megalophobic. Even outside of the test chambers, it's just tight hallways, offices, and machinery in the first game. But Portal 2 reveals that most of Aperture Laboratories is a massive underground empty space. The tight spaces coming from when you're on a catwalk in between two test chambers, with seemingly infinite space above and below you. The more industrial sections are large automated factories instead of just pistons. Like, what do they even do? Basically, everything about Portal 2 is bigger, and from the actual development to the setting, it really does wonders for the atmosphere. I'm really glad that they took a risk and completely redesigned Aperture, going for a completely different kind of unsettling, because it pays off so well. After testing with Gladys for a while, you start to find Wheatley in the little corners throughout the map. And you eventually escape with him. He says he has a plan to stop Gladys by sabotaging the production lines of the turrets and neurotoxin, which are her only two weapons against you because you're skipping around her chamber for this whole scene, and she doesn't do anything. Apparently she's corrupted or something because her system tells you to switch out her core for Wheatley's against her will. So you do, and it does, and of course he betrays you, because you can't have a robotic body that looks like this for more than 1/10 of a picosecond before turning evil. Wheatley basically goes insane and stuffs Gladys in a potato battery and punches you down a hole, which begins a unique part of the game.
Oh, hi. So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
You fall for miles down into the long, abandoned basement of Aperture. Don't worry though, you have on some Versace heels or something, so obviously you're too rich to die from something like fall damage. Down here you can access the old enrichment spheres, which are like the test chambers, only worse, and made of asbestos. Here is also where we get introduced to Cave Johnson, the founder of Aperture Science, and also like the best character in the game.
Welcome, gentlemen, to Aperture Science. Astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, you're here because we want the best, and you are it. So, who is ready to make some science?
I am.
That eager voice you heard is the lovely Carolyn, my assistant. She's the backbone of this facility. Pretty as a postcard, too. Sorry, fellas, she's married to science.
Well, I say in the game, Cave Johnson takes the place of Gladys in these sections, giving random information about the company as well as the occasional sarcastic motivation. He's voiced by J.K. Simmons, which really ties the whole character together and makes me like him even more. Gladys takes a liking to him too, and their combined forces making this section one of the best parts of the game.
For this next test, we put nanoparticles in the gel. In layman's terms, that's a billion little gizmos that are going to travel into your bloodstream and pump experimental genes and RNA molecules and so forth into your tumors. Now, maybe you don't have any tumors. Well, don't worry. If you sat on a folding chair in the lobby and weren't wearing lead underpants, we took care of that too.
Usually I'd be bored by this kind of thing in a video game, ripping you away from the main conflict just for a long side tangent, but here it works surprisingly well. You get a glimpse of Aperture as it was in the 60s and 70s, as well as new tests with new elements. This is where you're introduced to propulsion, repulsion, and conversion gels. Propulsion makes you run fast, repulsion gel is bouncy, and conversion gel makes portal surfaces. These are some of the funnest elements of the game, and while Portal 2 has already made modifications to test elements, like replacing the energy pellets with lasers, as well as excursion funnels and hard light bridges, the gels are especially notable. They completely change how you actually test, giving you a new challenge just when your brain was getting used to the average test chamber. Remember how you can use momentum going through portals to do cool stuff like this? Well, the gels take this to a whole new level. You can do all sorts of dude-perfect trick shots with this stuff, not to mention it can go through portals, multiplying the possibilities of stuff you can do with it, and overall giving the test chambers a fresh coat of paint, one could say. Another big part of this section is Gladys' character development. Since she's the only one who really knows Aperture, but she's also a potato, you agree to help each other escape. It's incredibly rare to see Gladys have any genuine emotions other than malice or sarcasm, so it's a really nice bit of character development, especially as she listens in on all of the messages Cave Johnson left. It's here where she finds herself agreeing with him, and maybe even getting a little invested in his life. As while most of Cave Johnson's recordings are jokes, you can pick up on some of the story and history of Aperture through them. The early recordings introduces the test subjects as being the best of the best, astronauts, war heroes, and Olympians making great contributions to science. But towards the second half of the recordings, there's another introduction, implying that the test subjects are now either very poor or straight up homeless, and they've been bribing them to do horribly dangerous tests with money.
Greetings, friend. I'm Cave Johnson, CEO of Aperture Science. You might know us as a vital participant in the 1968 Senate hearings on missing astronauts. And you've most likely used one of the many products we invented, but that other people have somehow managed to steal from us. Black Mesa can eat my bankrupt...
Sir, the testing?
Right. Now you might be asking yourself, Cave, just how difficult are these tests? What was in that phone book of a contract I signed? Am I in danger? Let me answer those questions with a question. Who wants to make $60? Cash. You can also feel free to relax for up to 20 minutes in the waiting room.
He also mentions how their rival company, Black Mesa, yes, that one, have been stealing inventions from them, and by the end they're testing their own employees and have blown a huge amount of money on moon rocks to make conversion gel and portal surfaces, which turns out to be very toxic and has made Cave Johnson deathly ill. In one of the final tapes, he tells you they're researching how to map a brain and store consciousness on a computer so he can run the company even after he dies.
The point is, if we can store music on a compact disc, why can't we store a man's intelligence and personality on one? So I have the engineers figuring that out now. Brain mapping, artificial intelligence. We should have been working on it 30 years ago. I will say this, and I'm going to say it on tape so everybody hears it 100 times a day. If I die before you people can pour me into a computer, I want Carolyn to run this place. Now she'll argue. She'll say she can't. She's modest like that, but you make her. Hell, put her in my computer. I don't care. Alright, test's over.
Carolyn was mentioned before as being Cave's secretary and the backbone of the company. Notice how he mentioned that she might object to having her brain be scanned onto a computer, but to do it anyways. By now it should be pretty obvious what's going on, but after finding herself subconsciously repeating Carolyn's lines and also hearing some of the tapes, Gladys figures out that she's Carolyn, put into a robotic body and made to run the company. Oh yeah, and we also learn that Wheatley is totally neglecting all of the upkeep on Aperture, and the whole place is going to explode if you don't stop him. You manage to get a lift up from 70s land and back up to the layers of Aperture into the final chunk of the game. This part is honestly pretty normal, at least as far as tests go, only it's using the gels again, this time in a more modern setting. So once again, I'm going to go off about the atmosphere. You can really tell that Wheatley is devolving here, from the weird pointless little Franken turrets to the test chambers being halfway or completely broken. It fits well with what I said at the beginning about how Aperture is basically GLaDOS. Wheatley's in control and he's ruining it, either being too overwhelmed with the power or just an idiot, or both. Eventually, after being too good at the tests, he cuts the shit and we arrive at the part where he kills us.
Well, this is the part where he kills us.
Hello! This is the part where I kill you. Had a bit of a brainwave. There I was, smashing some steel plates together, and I thought to myself, yeah, it's deadly, but what's missing? What's missing? And I thought lots of sharp bits welded onto the flat bits.
Wheatley's gotten to the peak of his insanity, and he's really just flailing around trying his best to hit you with anything he's got, in the hopes that killing you will stop the core meltdown that's currently happening. If you maneuver right, you'll eventually get to this game's final boss fight. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Wheatley's fight is better than GLaDOS's, at least from a gameplay standpoint. The whole thing revolves around him hucking bombs at you while you attach corrupted personality cores to him to force a core replacement. Pretty much the inverse of GLaDOS's fight. In that one, every wall was a portal surface, so you'd find the strategy that works, and then repeat it 3 times until she dies. Wheatley's fight starts out with no portal surfaces, and you have to trick him into hitting a tube of conversion gel and creating them. And even then, there's still a very limited amount because of the way the chamber is structured. Just like Gladys' fight, you have to trick Wheatley into hitting himself with bombs, only this time he has shields, meaning you'll have to use different sets of portals to hit him when his shields are up. This definitely isn't that hard, but at least it varies the gameplay, and the fact that Wheatley is personally shooting the bombs at you just makes it seem a little bit more intense, even though it's just the same concept as the rocket turret from Portal 1. There is a countdown timer on this one as well, this time to when the entire laboratory explodes, but it really doesn't matter. I usually could finish before I got anywhere close to stopping. I really don't understand why they keep adding them. After attaching all the cores, you have to press the stalemate button, which was something you had to do when first putting Wheatley on GLaDOS and causing this whole mess. But as soon as you get close enough, bombs will pop out of the wall and blow you across the room, initiating the final cutscene.
Not do it. Part 5! Booby trap the stalemate button. What? Are you still alive? You are joking. You have got to be kidding me. Well, I'm still in control, and I have no idea how to fix this place. Oh, you had to play... Space! Let go! We're in space! Let go! Let go! I'm still connected! I can pull myself in! I can still fix this!
I already fixed it, and you are not coming back.
Oh no! Change your plans! Hold on to me! Tighter! Grab me! Grab me! Grab me! Grab me!
This scene, although by far the most ludicrous thing in the entire series, in my opinion, is actually really good. I mean, the game earns it, it sets up the whole Moondust thing, and it's a really cool callback that makes more sense the more attention you were paying. It's a really nice and climactic way to end the fight, as well as the series, and even if you don't like it, the next scene where GLaDOS talks to you after saving your life definitely makes up for it.
Oh, thank God, you're all right. You know, being Carolyn taught me a valuable lesson. I thought you were my greatest enemy, when all along you were my best friend. The surge of emotion that shot through me when I saved your life taught me an even more valuable lesson, where Carolyn lives in my brain.
Carolyn deleted.
Goodbye, Carolyn. You know, deleting Carolyn just now taught me a valuable lesson. The best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one. And I'll be honest, killing you is hard. You know what my days used to be like? I just tested. Nobody murdered me, or put me in a potato, or fed me to birds. I had a pretty good life. And then you showed up, you dangerous, mute lunatic. So you know what? You win. Just go. It's been fun. Don't come back.
I really like this. For pretty much the entire second half of the game, you've been bonding with Potato GLaDOS, and it's been subconsciously leading you to believe you'll make up with her and you'll be friends or something. And the game basically bullies you for believing that. I mean, seriously, did you forget who you were dealing with here? There is a fan theory, though, that either she didn't delete Carolyn at all and was just lying to be intimidating, or she deleted what she thought was Carolyn, but can't fully delete her because she is Carolyn and she'd be deleting herself. I'm actually inclined to believe this, because, like, she releases you like she promised. She was an asshole about it, but she still did it. Also, on your elevator ride up, there's a turret orchestra wishing you goodbye. Keep with me here. This song is called Cada Mia Dio, and all of the lyrics here are really just confirmation that GLaDOS is just being a huge tsundere. This is all just the main campaign of Portal 2, and it has a co-op as well as a custom level thing. I haven't actually made any custom test chambers, but I really like the co-op, being its own little diet story, and mostly focusing on completing rounds of tests. Once again, the puzzles are clever and interesting in classic Portal fashion, and the advent of having 2 players really puts a new layer of confusing in there. I also want to mention Portal 2's soundtrack because it's really good. It fits perfectly with the atmosphere of the game, with the songs ranging from quiet, menacing strings to fun, dynamic, and electric. Sometimes you even get a hint of orchestral grandiosity, and it really helps the feeling that you're exploring this huge, dangerous, and unknown world. I've talked about the setting and atmosphere probably to an annoying degree, but it's because it's some of my favorite parts of these games. I think Aperture has its best portrayal in Portal 2, being this massive robotic ecosystem. It's like the setting is its own character, and I love that a lot. Things like this are why the game blew up so much. Like, it just hits a specific feeling, and it hits it hard. Portal innovated and made its own rules and then excelled at them. Every part of Portal feels like Portal, and I think that's why it will always be one of my favorite games. Wait, no, never mind. Cave Johnson is actually the only reason these games are any good.
Go ahead and leave me. I think I prefer to stay.